Yo guys, it's your boy Madman Habs and welcome to today's video. It will be about transitioning from primary school to secondary school and some of the experiences that you won't really be expecting but will encounter and you don't really get warned about but need to be warned about. So I hope you enjoy this video. In the next few videos it only makes sense to then talk more about secondary school, and just because it's 5 years of your life that's so pivotal, so crucial, especially when you from the ages of 11 to 16, and it really molds you as a young adult. So I hope you like this video. Again, please comment, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and enjoy. Hey guys, so welcome to the video again, and I first want to start off with general things that I noticed going from primary school to secondary school that I wasn't really made aware of, and you'll notice as well, and you would have noticed, or you can resonate with this. So the first thing is, in terms of people, huge. There's so many more students around you compared to primary school, and within that naturally there's so many more characters, because in a secondary school everyone starts to kind of mold and become an adult. You'll meet a lot of characters, a lot of people that you want to be friends with, but at the same time a lot of people that you will clash with. And sadly, naturally in a secondary school that's non-selective state school, those clashes could be more severe. The second thing is, it will be your first taste in adulthood. That's the other thing that I noticed going from primary to secondary school. There's firstly, in terms of GCSEs, you need to specialise, you kind of shape yourself a little bit more. There's definitely more structure, and I'll come on to this in a bit, but mainly there's more responsibility. So you're responsible for, turning up, waking up in the morning, getting dressed in the correct uniform, turning up on time, because chances are your parents won't be taking you all the way to secondary school. And it can become a little bit embarrassing when you're 14 years old and your mum's dropping you off. There's other things where you need to make sure you've got the right equipment, you have the right state of mind to actually study. So whereas in primary school it's more of a, hey, just turn up, have fun with it, do what you can and go home, right? And so other things as well, making sure your homework's done on time, and complete the next day, because with these responsibilities come consequences. And it was the first time that I experienced going from primary school to secondary school with detention, being held in a classroom for longer than you would like to have, and staying there for like literally 10, 5, 20, even half an hour just sitting there. It's funny when I look back actually, and detention is a big thing that you will experience a lot. Something that I've never ever experienced in primary school, but a lot in secondary school over small things. The third thing you'll definitely feel is a lot more regiment. So it kind of comes into that adulthood point that I made earlier. There'll be timetables, there'll be more demands from your teachers, your parents, and it's basically a place where you're in secondary school. In those 5 years, you're kind of shaping yourself, but other people are also shaping themselves and are already shaped. So naturally, you will work differently and clash. Some things in terms of teaching styles or ideas or whatever may not work for you, but it's a regiment they have, and you need to kind of compromise to. So you need to find a solution that works for yourself and them, but ultimately them and the school and the curriculum and the teachers' way of teaching rather. So that's one thing. Other things that become regiment is the fact that you have school, but at home there's demands as well, and it'll feel like everyone is just throwing tasks at you and responsibilities at you, but it's part of the parcel, and you just need to kind of embrace it with a positive mind, but also find that what works for you. So they're my key 3 things that in general that I noticed go from primary to secondary. So a lot more people with a lot more characters, for opportunities to make friends, but also clashes. The big step up to adulthood and taking responsibility. So being in charge of my education whilst I was, it's compulsory to be at school, but you have to take yourself there, physically and mentally. And the third thing is it'll feel a bit more regimented, feel a bit more structured, and it might not necessarily work for you, but you have to kind of compromise and make it work for you. I mean, there's amazing positives about secondary school, and it's quite easy just to talk about them, and you don't really necessarily need advice on it. It's, just go with the momentum, and things are always going well. So in today's video, I actually wanted to focus on the ugly, and that's what I do, right? I mean, the whole channel is about things you should kind of dodge, as well as make use of positive things. But I kind of wanted to focus on the ugly side of secondary school, just because I really wish someone could tell me and like warn me beforehand, and hopefully this video does this. Both guys and girls go through almost the same thing, but there are also some stark differences, and I've spoken to a few girl friends of mine, spoken to my aunt as well, who went to the same school as me, just a year above me, and I want to go through some of the ugly truths. So firstly, I want to start off with girls, and these are things that as a girl you'll experience going into secondary school, and you need to just be aware of. So my aunt spoke to me in depth, and a lot of girls, one, naturally you'll be getting attention from guys a lot more, but two, she told me how the girls in the state school were like kind of pushing each other to get attention from guys, so doing things, so dressing in a certain way, wearing makeup a certain way, and it was pushed to get attention. Now I'm not saying that girls do that in general, you're free to wear makeup and dress how you want, but in there was a culture of pushing each other to do this just to get attention and validation from guys. So I guess seek validation. The second thing that I heard a lot when speaking to my girlfriends and my aunt was bitchiness. All of a sudden there's a whole realm of bitchiness, and something in primary school you've never have really ever experienced, and bitchiness about everyone, and talking behind each other's back and whatnot. And it's funny because I say this to girls because as a guy growing up in secondary school, it wasn't really the case. The other thing you'll also experience as a girl going through secondary school is a lot of sexism. In an underprivileged area, in a state school, a non-selective one, and you're around all these kids, unfortunately it's rife, and it's very common. For example, things like girls don't do these subjects, uniform problems, like this is too short, your button this, and comments made and whatnot. Another thing I really noticed, even myself, and I don't need to be a girl or ask a girl, or girls or my friends about this, is slut shaming. It is huge. Like all of a sudden from primary school to secondary school, it just goes off the roof. And the worst bit is actually other girls that are the main culprits. So guys will say it as well as girls, but it's the other girls that are culprits. Kind of mixes in bitchiness. And as a girl yourself growing up in secondary school, every move you make is subjected to this, and you're a slut, you did this, you're slutty, and all that stuff. Even rumours that maybe you didn't get along with someone, they'll say bad things like you did XYZ with this, and XYZ with that, and rumours are just spreading and gossiping. So bitchiness and gossiping are kind of put in the same bandwagon. Now moving away from girls, I want to come up with guys, and these are from my experiences, my friends' experiences. And going from primary school to secondary school, one thing I definitely noticed was, and again, I put this in the remit of as non-selective state school in a rough area, and I noticed the physical dominance you had to have as an individual when walking around in the playground. Just because a lot of kids were getting quite physical, there's a lot of fights, a lot of bullying and whatnot, and you kind of had to stand up for yourself. So all of a sudden from primary school to secondary school, I found myself doing like press-ups and sit-ups every night. It wasn't to get a good body, I couldn't care about getting a good body, it's more to like fight and defend myself. And a lot of other kids were doing that. And in secondary school, there were small things like you play, I don't know, like knuckles, where you hit each other's knuckles, testing physical strength, as blow to blow, where you're punching each other's arms until the other person gives up. We used to play another thing called swingers, where everyone had a little backpack, you'll grab each other's backpack and you swing each other around, and everyone else will look and, you know, laugh at whoever's on the floor, and, you know, obviously the guy who's strongest wins, right? And you would never see girls doing that. It would just be a guy thing, and you know, it was all about being the strongest guy in the room, and they got all the all the attention from the other girls. They got all the validation from other guys, and it's quite interesting because when I compare it to some of my friends who went to like grammar schools or like private schools, for them it was all about brain. Like they'll compete on who's the smartest and also who's the richest. So my dad has this, you know, we did this, we did X, Y, Z. So it's quite interesting, the contrast. But definitely as a guy, that was the main thing, you know, your alpha dominance in terms of physical strength, and nothing else mattered. So next part, I just want to talk about other stuff. So these were like the ugly, actually I do have one more point. I'm just going to read it from here. For both, so this is both for girls and guys. And one thing that definitely changes is, and it's given more importance in secondary school, is your appearance. Of course, it's more pressure on girls, naturally, because, you know, it's forced on them. They need to be pretty and they need to look good and have a good body. But in general, for both of them, I'll talk about both of them first. You need to start wearing fashion designer clothes, which you never had the pressure in primary school. And, you know, if you wear something old, you'll get bullied for that. If it's torn, you get bullied for that. If you've had it more than a year and it's almost like it isn't in the freshest condition, you could get bullied for that. So there's a lot of pressure in how you look in terms of the materialistic stuff, but also your face, what, you know, sports and all of that stuff, it all get picked out. And it's something that you never really had to deal with in primary school, and in secondary school it will become top of the agenda. And then of course, sadly, with girls it's bigger. You know, guys and girls will comment on the girls' like body parts, their face, every single body part and facial feature will be commented on, and it's that pressure that you never really face when you're younger, and pre-secondary school it'll just come to light. The last thing, which is a very big one, and I want to talk about it in itself in another video, is bullying. And sadly, it is commonplace. It's so normalized that you don't even know that you're being bullied. That's how I felt when I was in secondary school, and I swear to you, literally every kid gets bullied at that time, and, you know, and if you were to speak up, the consequential pressures were tough, because the bully would know that you kind of snitched on him, his friends will know that you snitched on him, they find you outside, the school doesn't have anything to do or say, and, you know, whatever could happen. So all that threat there made you feel you didn't want to speak up. So when you did feel, okay, I'm actually being bullied, I want to talk to someone. But I'll come on to this in another video. In fact, in my secondary school, it was normalized so much that, and I'll tell you my secondary school in the next video, because I don't care about naming and shaming, it's just what it is. In my secondary school, it was so commonplace that even I was accused of bullying, I got excluded for it, and I didn't even know that I was bullied. And it's not that I was a bad kid, honestly, by no means. If you was to meet me in secondary school, I was just like a mischievous little kid, but not mean, whereas there were plenty of students I could label as mean. And so it's sad that it became so normalized in secondary school, and I just want you to be aware that it's there, and speak up about it. But I'll do another video on that. And I just want to talk about other small general things, but this is so common and it's like, oh, we shouldn't talk about, but let's talk about sex and masturbation and hormones, right? Look, secondary school, everyone's going through a madness in their bodies, in their minds, and it's something that you're never warned about or talked about a lot too. Science classes are honestly way too late. Not enough information, they're just useless. By the time you get there and you listen to what they have to say, you're giggling because you already kind of figured out yourself already, and you're like, what's the point of this? And it just becomes an awkward, funny lesson. And I also feel they don't go into the nitty gritty, and it's often too late in general. So what happens is you end up figuring things out yourself, and that's okay as well. But I urge you as a young adult to speak up to your parents, which can also be embarrassing. To speak to your siblings if you've got a close sibling. For me, I didn't feel comfortable speaking to my mum. One, she's my mum, so like, you know, as a girl and I'm a young guy. The second thing is I had a house full of aunts. I didn't feel comfortable going to talk about it, and so I ended up speaking a lot to my friends, which was quite nice. We were quite open about things, but also before that even happened, I figured things out myself, which was also quite scary because you're like, what the hell is happening? What the hell is going on with my body? But it's one thing I advise you guys to read up, Google about it, what's happening, if it's happening, speak to someone about it, and if you can't speak to someone about it, then read up on it yourself, and try confirm those with someone, a teacher ideally. The other thing is, you know, general stuff is when you go into secondary school, you are a young adult, so whilst you need to respect rules and regulations of the school, the teachers within the classroom, you also have a chance to stand up and speak up for yourself, and you should do, but do it in the right manner. So it doesn't mean when a teacher's telling you to do something, you argue back and, you know, just accept it. And in the classroom, be an adult and ask them for 5 minutes. Honestly, what I'm saying now is asking a lot of most teenage students, because I wouldn't even do this, but want to be impressive, to, you know, it'll get your point across and make you be heard. But yeah, stand up. What I'm trying to say is stand up for yourself, because you have the platform and you have your own mind, but do it in the correct way. How you want to do that, I'm pretty sure you can find ways on how to, you know, logically argue, or ask your parents or your brother or your sister or your teacher even, what's the best way for me to voice my opinions across to you, because I don't feel I'm being heard. Last thing is, definitely in secondary school, get involved in extracurricular activities. I mean, my school wasn't the best school, but they still had things going on. Get involved in, even if you're not even good at it, just do it, because there'll be something there for you to do. Whether that be drama productions, after school sports clubs, student mentors, like, you know, like being a mentor to another student, or being mentored by like business guys. If there's like a school trip to like go see a career or bank or whatever, just do it. Say yes. Say yes to everything if you can. So obviously my channel is about giving advice. So I've mentioned all the bad, the ugly stuff that we don't really know about or expect in secondary school, going from primary school. And now I just want to give you a little bit of advice. It's not extensive, it's not thorough, but it's something to start on, and hopefully you can ask more people for advice that have been through secondary school and how they've dealt with certain things. That includes your parents, brothers and sisters, neighbours and whoever. So one of the first points I made was that there are a lot of people in secondary school compared to primary school, and that naturally results to opportunities where you can have loads of friends, but also there will be loads of clashes. First things first is it's easier to go to a school where you have siblings, so older brothers and sisters, or the school that you're going to has, as in the school that you're going to will include a load of your primary school friends. Just because when you're in a new environment, it's very scary and it's uncomfortable, but seeing faces on a daily basis that you are familiar with naturally makes things easier, and you can also see comfort in. The second thing that I would suggest is make as many friends as possible. There's so many different people, they're so interesting and unique in their own selves, and make friends with them. Be open, be friendly, just make friends with anyone and everyone. The third thing I want to piggyback off that is, in school you have a lot of time. You don't realise that, but you have a lot of time. With these new friends, spend all the time you can. Of course, naturally, I would like you to find great friends, and maybe we could do a video on understanding what makes a great friend. But for now, yourself, you'll figure it out. They're sensible, they're hardworking, they want to have fun as well, and hang out with these people, but also do it often. You have so much time before school, in break time, lunchtime, even after school. Use all these times to just hang together and relax and chill and get to know each other and do things. Because naturally, as a teenager, you'll hate school, but at least you love your friends and you love hanging out with them. And when I look back, I used to go to school just because I could see my friends a lot, and it was so cool because when you grow older, you rarely ever see your friends again. So in school, you see them every single day, and that's definitely a luxury that you realize later. The second thing is, having gone through all the points, is avoid a bad school. What do I mean by a bad school? A school where there's bullying, poor GCSE results, and just loads of troublemaking kids in general. Now, how do you figure that out? One, first and foremost, if you do, your brothers and sisters who've been to that school, they will tell you enough, and they should do, and you should listen to them, you should ask them about it. The second thing is, you can Google the school, you can find out about them, you can find out GCSE results, how they compare to another school in your local neighbourhood, and other things. You can Google in general, how often does the school pop up in Google News, what are they actually talking about. I don't know, is this school neglected some students and we're on the news for that? Were they known for winning championships in table tennis? And these are things that you can note down as you list your schools, or if you're watching this, you could do to help your child find the right school for them and to avoid all these rotten apple schools. Pick the best of the bunch. The third thing to do to enjoy school is, well, there's a lot, but develop a thick skin. And this is very hard because when you're young, you're very sensitive, you're very vulnerable to criticisms, to being told X, Y, Z, and developing a hard skin is quite tough. But if you can, and what I mean by that is, try block out what people say about you, and also the people that say things, who are they and how important are they to you? And if they're not that important and what they say isn't that important, ignore it. Of course, it's tough to block it out, but if you can develop that thick skin mentally or prepare yourself for that, then you're already one step ahead. And in general, to deal with downers in school, speak to people. So go home, speak to your mum and dad. If you're parents, you gotta ask your kids, how was school? How was it? Take an interest in their life. If you're a child, tell your mum and dad, I want to speak about school today. It's my first day at school. This is what we did. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. Just be open about it. If you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents, talk to siblings, talk to friends after school, and that way you can kind of vent out what you like, what you don't like. I didn't feel comfortable speaking to my mum or my siblings, and so I used to just speak to my friends a lot after school. I was like, I hate this, or I don't like that, what's going on here? But I always hung out with them and openly spoke to them, and I felt like I was venting things out. Ideally, you want to speak to people that can actually be supportive to help make changes or actions, or teach you ways you can circumvent or go around it or deal with it. Last thing I just wanted to last 2 points actually, and maybe I might do a video on this, but I didn't know there was things such as grammar schools firstly, and secondly, when I hear grammar schools, I hear, okay, loads of big money needs to go into it, but these are actually free schools full of incredibly smart students where you need to do tests before you actually get in. So honestly, put them on your radar. If put them on your radar for your children. The only thing, I guess, is that children need to be prepared when they're 9 or 10 or 11, just before secondary school, for these tests. So if you're from a background where your parents or the guardians around you don't know much about the education system, then it's quite tough. As a 9 or 10 year old, you can't really navigate your life and decide what school you want to go to, and these are the reasons why. It might be quite tough, and prepare for those tests. But parents or older brothers and sisters, if you're watching this, learn about grammar schools. They're free. Most of them are free, or there are some fee paying, but there are definitely some that are free, and it'll just be an environment where it's full of incredibly smart kids who are quite mentally quite driven, quite ambitious. And I mentioned earlier in the video where from a guy's perspective you're fighting over strength, there you'd be fighting over brains, and I'll happily have my child fight over being how smart he is compared to another kid. And yeah, so when on this last point, for me, secondary school was quite an awesome and interesting 5 years where I was kind of finding my own 2 feet. It could have easily gone really wrong. I mean, the first 3 years was horrendous for me in terms of where I was heading. Thank God, the last 2 years I fixed up, and it turned out to be, in hindsight, a pretty awesome experience. So make the most of it, and that's it really. I just want to say at the end, if you like my video, hit a like and a comment. But also, this video isn't thorough and extensive, so I really want, and I invite you guys to comment on situations you had or you experienced that you wish you had known go from primary to secondary school, because I haven't covered everything, I know that. And just personal experience, let me know about them. And I know a range of people who are watching this, from young people to adults. If you're young and you feel some of this advice is relevant to some parents who have kids who are going to primary school, share this video with them honestly. If you're a parent, you feel your child really needs to watch this video to knock some sense in them, share this video with them as well. I really hope it helps. And again, please do comment. I'll be replying and responding, and I encourage you to share your experiences at secondary school. Take care. Peace.